The movie starts with a grown-up, Tim Templeton, playing with his wife Carol and his kids, Tabitha and Tina, in the yard. He is fond of using his extraordinary imagination to entertain his little girls and tries his very best to be the greatest dad. Carol is the breadwinner of the family, while Tim is a stay-at-home dad. On the other hand, his baby brother Ted had grown up to be an actual boss. Ted has gotten so busy that the family hardly ever sees him. His days of having fun with Tabitha soon come to an end when she enters 7th grade in the newest academy in town, Acorn. Instead of playing with her dad and laughing at his jokes, Tabitha is more focused on doing homework, studying, and becoming successful like her Uncle Ted. After getting ready for sleep, Carol, Tina, and Tim come into the room to bid her goodnight. But when it comes to Tim singing her usual bedtime song, she declines. He again offers to help her prepare for her pageant presentation and as well offers to read her favorite bedtime story, but she rejects all offers. Finally, Tim tries to kiss her goodnight, but she offers him a handshake instead, claiming she's a little too old for that. Disappointed, Tim leaves the room and heads into the attic, where he stumbles upon his box of old toys. Inside, he finds his old wizard alarm, Wizzy. Wizzy expresses his anger for being left in the bottom of the box for ages. He talks to Wizzy about his fears of Tabitha growing apart from him, and while Wizzy offers to turn back time, Tim hears some strange noise coming from baby Tina's room. He hurries down to investigate and finds nothing suspicious at first. Thinking he was only mistaken, he pulls down the sheets to say goodnight to Tina, but is shocked to find Tina's creepy teddy bear under the sheets. Looking down, he finds Tina standing at the door talking. Tina then tries to explain that she's in the family business, but Tim faints out of shock. After regaining consciousness, Tim realizes that Tina is also part of Baby Corp. She then explains to Tim that she's part of a new secret mission, and Tim immediately offers to help. Tina then bursts his bubbles by telling him that she actually wants him to get Uncle Ted to help. Sadly, Tim and Ted haven't been in touch for a while, so Tim refuses to call Ted. He kisses Tina goodnight and tucks her in before leaving. After leaving, Tina wakes up again and replays a recording of Tim's voice, with which she drops a voicemail for Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted arrives on his helicopter the following day, to everyone's greatest surprise. Ted is happy but also disappointed that Tabitha didn't actually fall off her pony. Tim realizes it was Tina's doing, but quickly covers up by lying that he must have butt-dialed him in his sleep while sleep-talking. After that's settled, Tabitha tells Ted how much she missed him, and even gives him a kiss on the cheeks, which Tim doesn't like. He asks to speak with Ted privately and pulls him into the kitchen with baby Tina. While in the kitchen, Tim tries to explain to Ted that Tina can talk, and that she's part of Baby Corp. Unfortunately, Ted no longer has the memories of when he was in the Baby Corp, and finds Tim rather crazy for thinking such. Tina interrupts and offers them both pacifiers. While sucking on the pacifiers, the trio are immediately transported to Baby Corp, where Ted immediately regains his memories of being part of Baby Corp. Tina quickly shows them around and then shows them a video presentation of Tabitha's school, the Acorn Center. In the presentation, the school's founder, Dr. Armstrong, discourages children from depending on their parents, and Tim starts to realize why Tabitha has grown so distant from him. Tina tells them that the school's founder has become a problem by trying to take away childhood forever. Tina then further explains that Baby Corp has designed a formula that could turn adults back to babies, which Ted will be using to disguise himself in order to infiltrate the school and find out what Dr. Armstrong is really up to. Arriving back in the kitchen, Tim is disappointed that the mission has been assigned to only Ted when it is his daughter that's involved. The duo then get into a fight, with each of them taking successive sips from the formula and ending up reverting back to 7th grade Tim and baby Ted. While they're still fighting, Carol and Tabitha return with the new Christmas tree. Tina then covers up for them by distracting Carol's attention while they trick Carol into thinking that they are leaving for brother bonding time. Meanwhile, they snatch the opportunity to sneak back into Tina's room. Later that night, Tina decides that both of them should go on the mission, despite Ted's complaints. She hands them some gadgets and explains that they need to plant the surveillance gadgets in Dr. Armstrong's office. The following day, Tim and Ted appear to have overslept. They miss the bus, but with the help of Tabitha's pony, Precious, they are able to make it to the school just in time. They manage to get into the school's uniform. After that, they both agreed to meet in front of the principal's office by 11:15. Tim then joins the 7th graders while while Ted forcefully leaves with the babies. In Tabitha's class, Tim gets bullied by a kid named Nathan, but he gets impressed when Tabitha helps him out. After that, Dr. Armstrong resumes class and asks Tim to introduce himself. Tim introduces himself as Marcos Lightspeed and is forced to sit through a class of competitive students. But this makes him proud as Tabitha remains at the top of her class by answering each question correctly. Meanwhile, Ted is stuck with the babies and tries to find a way to escape. He convinces the babies to help him and soon makes it out of the daycare. On the other hand, Tim remembers that he'll be late for the mission, so he asks for a hall pass to use the bathroom. Tim then comes back out into the classroom and puts on a rebellious behavior towards Dr. Armstrong. Sadly, instead of being sent to the principal's office, he's sent into the box for a timeout. Meanwhile, Ted manages to get to the principal's office. There, he's confronted by the actual Dr. Armstrong, who claims to have been expecting him. To Ted's surprise, Dr. Armstrong reveals himself to be an actual baby. He invites Ted to an exclusive babies-only meeting and increases his rank from yellow to purple. On the other hand, Tina gets the message from Ted that Armstrong is a baby. Back in the school, Tim is released from the box during recess. He finds Ted on the children's side, and Ted confronts him for not showing up. Ted ends up provoking Tim, and they end up having an argument. After school, while Tim is leaving, he overhears Nathan making practice difficult for Tabitha. He finds Tabitha and explains to Carol about being friends with Tabitha. He also tricks Carol into letting him stay for dinner. Meanwhile, Ted meets up at the secret spot for the meeting. There, he finds out that Armstrong plans to get rid of all parents and homes. Later that evening, during dinner, Tim, as Marco, learns from his parents how much Ted loved him, even though he never admitted it. Afterwards, Tabitha takes Tim around the house. She shows him her inventions, and they eventually end up talking about the school pageant that is coming up the next day. Tim then offers to play the guitar while helping Tabitha practice for the pageant. She is reluctant at first and blows it up on her first try, which surprises Tim. However, he commends her for trying and manages to calm her down. Eventually, she gets her notes right. Afterwards, he bids them goodbye and leaves. At night, Tina and Ted have been trying to reach Tim, but to no avail. They start talking about Ted and Tim's relationship, and Ted finds a note that Tim had written when they were younger. Ted feels sad, as the note says Tim would be there for him always, but that hasn't been the case. He tells Tina that it doesn't matter and that things like this happen when one grows up, and just then, Tim arrives. They both apologize to each other, but realize that their mission is over, and they will have to return to their normal lives soon. But Tina gets a call from Baby Corp and informs Tim and Ted that Baby Corp needs them to get the job done. With 17 hours left on the clock, the trio devises a plan that they will execute the next day, but only after Tabitha's solo. The following evening, the program kicks off. Tina directs both Tim and Ted to make sure they have assumed their places. However, their plan is jeopardized when Ted realizes that Armstrong plans to unleash his master plan the same day. He also finds out that Armstrong had installed an app into all parents' phones, which hypnotizes its user when a picture is taken. Ted then immediately excuses himself and informs Tina about the change of plans, but Tim has taken off his earphone and is completely unaware. Tabitha soon comes up on stage, but Ted tries to shut off the power. Tim gets annoyed and tries to stop him for Tabitha's sake, but they both end up bickering about how they were never there for each other. Ted manages to get a hold of the switch, and after pulling it down, nothing happens. A smoke bomb suddenly appears, and the next thing, Tim and Ted are tied up by Armstrong's ninja babies. Armstrong also shows up to inform the duo that he has been aware they were plotting something all this time. He orders Tim and Ted to be taken to the box while Tabitha's performance begins. While inside the box, Tabitha completes her solo, while the entire parents slowly get hallucinated by Armstrong's app. After she concludes her song, she realizes from the silence that her dad didn't show up. Meanwhile, Tim and Ted realize their mistakes and properly apologize to each other while awaiting their doom. Tina, who is unable to find Tim and Ted, goes to Tabitha and manages to get her to help. Inside the box, Ted remembers Precious the pony. He uses his special whistling tone to call to Precious, who, without haste, comes to their aid. On the other hand, Tina informs Tabitha about finding the server for the app so they can destroy destroy it. She gets in contact with Tim and Ted and also informs them about destroying the server. They all head for the server, with Tim and Ted battling with the ninja babies. Tim and Ted arrive at the place first, but they are unable to make it past Armstrong. Tina and Tabitha then show up a while later, but Armstrong releases the parents to attack. With Tina's help, Tabitha gains access to the room and tries to disable the server, but Armstrong attacks her. Seeing as they stand no chance against Armstrong, Tabitha comes up with a last-minute plan using Mentos and soda to create a soda bomb that short-circuits the server room. Unfortunately, it almost costs Tabitha her life as she falls off the tree. Luckily, Tim, whose serum had worn off at the right time, catches her. He then offers her a handshake, but she kisses him on the cheeks this time and hugs him tight. On the other hand, Armstrong witnesses the parent-to-child love and relationship and starts to rethink his decision. With the program destroyed, the parents return to their senses and unite with their children. Tina then reveals that the baby corp never asked her to assign the job to Tim and Ted, and that it was just a plan to get them both to reunite. Later during Christmas, Tabitha performs her solo just for the family. The doorbell rings, and when Tim goes to get it, he gets hit on the face by a snowball from Ted. The entire family then rushed out to play in the snow, and as the movie ends, Armstrong returns to his home, where he is welcomed back warmly by his parents. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.